Hello everyone, and welcome back to A Medieval, where today we're going to play episode 2, Domain of the Sentinels. Everything's green, everything looks a little different, and as I mentioned before, we are going to be facing enemies we have not seen before. If we grab the sword, there's going to be a bunch of melee enemies and a ball approaching us. This actually has a little difference between evil difficulty and the other difficulties in the game, in that the melee enemies will always drop one of those parasites when they die, and they will try to fly into you to deal a whole bunch of damage, whereas on lower difficulties it only happens sometimes. So certainly a lot more dangerous. Those parasites, you can kill them with the axe, but the axe can also suck them in. And that's not great, because usually you'll just get hit by them before the axe actually kills them, and you end up in a predicament. So hopefully we're not going to run into that too much. We'll deal with all these statues here in a second, but for now, one more enemy type. It is the ranged attacker. And some enemies behind the door as well. There's also those balls. They shoot revenant-like projectiles, from similar to Doom, except that these projectiles do disappear after a while. Mostly you just slash them a bit. They are pretty melee-able as well if you want to, but a distant weapon is not too terrible of an idea. These parasites, they don't actually count towards the kill count either, so if you do end up missing one, it shouldn't be the end of the world, but you know, it's nice to just get them all out of the way. I kind of wanted to do all destructibles in this chapter, because doing stuff like this, there is just something inherently satisfying about destroying all of the statues in a row. But the downside is that this level is 48 destructible things, and it's some of them have like 60 something. It's a lot, so we're just not going to deal with it. Over here is our first message: the imperfect will be destroyed. Canonically, this place was filled with xenophobic people. It was mentioned in the codex, and as such, all of the messages are just going to talk about order and being perfect and all that kind of nonsense. So we're just going to skim through all of that for the sake of stats, but fortunately the evil came along and turned everyone into parasites, so we don't have to worry about their evil ways. I'm walking around this kind of weirdly, because those cubes, if you touch them, they do hurt. They hurt the enemy as well, but sometimes the enemies manage to get around them. And that can be a little scary, but even if you just touch these on the side, you end up just taking a little bit of damage, so it's certainly something you have to look out for. There's a key here, so we're just going to grab that. There is a switch there, which you can hit through the fence, which is nice. Hitting that fence will open up the door, and behind the door is my best friend. So that is wonderful. I did mention earlier that on evil difficulty, the melee enemies will always drop a parasite upon death. That's not entirely true, but it depends on how you kill them. If you kill them with the axe or the sword, then it does happen all the time. But if you manage to impale one and stick it into the wall, then the parasite won't come out. But if you don't stick it to the wall, which can happen, the parasite does come out. And then the Azure Orb also just doesn't make it happen, so that's kind of nice. Also, occasionally, if you wait here long enough, that enemy shows up. There is also a new enemy type here. It's the Eye Tree. It shoots a lot of eyes. You'd rather just not deal with it. But because that melee enemy got stuck on the wall there, the parasite ended up not coming out. I'm surprised that one's not jumping down, actually. Usually they're fairly good about this kind of stuff, but this time around he's just not too interested. I wonder if I can make him not stick to the wall if I just throw him over there or something like that. It's kind of tricky because of his weird movements. If I do this, yeah, like that, the parasite did come out, because after a while they just explode. So you end up with a little bit of danger, but for the most part, unless you do it very particularly, that's not going to happen. There's also some other enemies here you can just barely hit, and you can deal with them a little early, which is nice. I think there's another eye here usually, but that's probably fine. Let's just move on. Over here is a switch. Pressing the switch opens some doors. All the doors have some enemies behind them, and as I said before, there is indeed one more of those circles. So fortunately we got rid of that. No worries. You could probably, like if I were to do this, they do have a tendency to gravitate towards walls. You can also hear some enemies try to attack me. They are in a place that we're not going to reach for a while, so don't worry about that noise. How and where? Genuinely don't know. Might have come from down here, actually. There is the Azure Orb right here. According to the Medieval Wiki, the Azure Orb deals 25% more damage to these balls compared to against other enemies. I don't know how to test this. I'm just gonna take their word for it because it is fairly effective against them. So we're just gonna shoot a little bit all over the place. There's some enemies here that are hiding around corners, and occasionally you can aggro them by just shooting them. As you can see, the parasite also didn't come out when we shot that melee enemy. So that is wonderful. It means there's one less danger to deal with, and the elevator down there makes the button over there makes the elevator go down, so keep that in mind. Now over here is some secret health. I never really know when I want to get this, but I might as well right now, I suppose. Nothing really stopping us. And with that, let's lower this. Go up the thing. I still hear an enemy, which concerns me, but it's fine. So it's probably nothing that's going to damage us right now. So over here are a bunch of lights. If we walk over light number 4 there, those walls are going to try and push us off, unless we do this and jump around the trigger that makes that happen. A weird thing that does happen with this, though, is that ordinarily pushing this switch would stop the trap from happening, whereas now if we press it, it is going to activate it instead, which has some interesting effect when this very slow-moving enemy tries to cross it and it just gets pushed down. Those things don't actually deal damage, they're just a nuisance, so I'd rather just get rid of them like that. And I think from this point on, there's really no way to stop them either, so that's just gonna... those walls are just gonna keep moving from this point on now. Because I think even if I were to, like, walk over the 4th... oh, you get the idea. Even if I were to walk over that 4th light, I don't think it would actually stop it. So, yeah, that's just going to keep happening. Over there is the Volt Ride. Watch out for this platform. It's a lift, so keep that in mind. It's very easy to fall down here, and then you have to wait for the elevator to go back up again. It's a nuisance. So, let's destroy all of these. I would like a little bit more soul. I was kind of hoping to have soul power at this point, I think. Wow. But, I mean, ultimately it doesn't matter too much. Because over there... I think I'm misremembering where I am. No worries. Let's just keep moving. Here is the stick. If you didn't have it already from the secret area, you can get it right there. Apparently there's a ball here. Pressing that switch will open up some doors. One of which has some enemies behind it, so keep that in mind. Also one of those trees again. So be careful, but otherwise, just have a good time. No worries at all. But there should be a legendary soul coming up here. Yeah, there it is. And that's, usually I like to have soul power already active a little bit sooner, but I guess this works out. Going in here, having soul power is just a really nice thing to have, which I guess is why the legendary soul is there. Because there's a lot of enemies, and it's just very, very neat to be able to just destroy everyone like this. Very nice. That got rid of most of everything, so that's good. And now we can take our time to read some of the remaining messages that are in this level, because we just walked past most of them. There is one over here. There's 2 on this wall right here about perfection and order and whatnot. All kinds of nonsense. Let's just quickly grab this legendary soul as well, so we can have some more soul power in just a moment. I walked in a wrong way. I got lost for a second there. And the final message, I think, should be here. And indeed it is. Pressing this switch will create a bridge in a way that I like to look at. And that's why I didn't press it any sooner. Also, I don't know if I ever mentioned this, and I made one video on this so far, so I could have not. If you kill enemies with the soul power, they just turn into this watery goo afterwards, and I think it just looks neat. Some very neat visual effects to when that happens. Watch out again for an elevator before we pick up the rocket stick. Use our remaining soul power to just destroy these enemies right here. Hey, there's Earth again. That's nice. And watch out for these enemies. They die very quickly, but they're a nuisance. They can just chip you down a little bit more than I would enjoy, so definitely watch out for that a little bit. But with that, we only have a little bit more to go. Walking forward here is going to close the doors around us. Having power would probably actually be pretty good for this fight. It can be a little tricky. Using Volt Ride against these enemies has mixed effects, I feel. Also, I just pressed a button, which said one more to go. Because sometimes Volt Ride works, and other times it just doesn't, and I'm not really sure what the difference is. But yeah, it's mixed for sure, whether or not it works, and that makes it a little unreliable, unfortunately. My health is a little lower than I would like, but that's fine. Pressing the final switch will open the door to the exit. Kill these remaining parasites, and that is that. We are good to go. That's all kill secret messages. Very nice indeed. And as you can see, there's a bunch more statues here as well. Let's see if I can make this work. It's just for fun. I tried that. That's okay. There is there's an achievement for leaving the level with less than 10 health. And one way of doing that is to just destroy yourself with a rocket as you're entering the exit. And you'll end up getting it as well, because technically you're leaving with less than 10% health. Don't worry about it. We'll get it later, probably. Hopefully. If not, that's fine. Either way. Up next is the second level of episode 2. The Forgone Fortress. This is the level where I'm most expecting to die in this episode, so we'll see if that ends up happening. Over here, there is Volt Ride from the get-go. Let's use it to kill that enemy right there, because it ends up dealing a lot of enemy damage to the eyeball, which otherwise can be a little tricky to kill for sure. Picking up all of the ammo I can get, because we're going to need it. There is another big meatball right there. I really don't know what to call these. I should have really remembered some of the names at least, but I'm never going to. Also, some enemies trying to shoot you from all up above. There is 2 actually, and Volt Ride can take care of the second one as well, which is some nice business. And you can certainly deal with the melee portion of these enemies with the axe fairly easily without much regard of danger, which is nice. It's just that you really need to watch out for those parasites, because they can be a real bother. Get the Celestial Claw and destroy everyone there. Arguably, it's probably better to just rocket jump up there and continue the level for a bit before moving on, but we're just not going to do that because we like to live dangerously. Some more enemies sitting on top of the ceiling. With that done, we are going to read this message and also grab the legendary soul that was just hanging out. There is also a health pickup over there that you can rocket jump to, but there's a different way of getting it, and we'll just get it a little bit later. It's also just nice to get this starting section out of the way before picking up the big health power-up that puts you back at 200 health, so that's exactly what we're gonna do. Pushing the switch does spawn some extra enemies, so be careful of that. I'm hoping Volt Ride cooperates a little bit here, because there is a decent chunk of scary enemies, and if we can just kill a lot of them like this, that would be lovely, because this is the part of the level where I'm most expecting to die and have had some mixed experiences. Just because there's a lot of enemies and it's very easy to just get overwhelmed by all of it. Fortunately, rockets work fairly well. We don't yet have the Azure Orb, unfortunately, so we're just gonna have to make this work, but we got through that relatively unscathed. I often get through this with like 20 health remaining, so I'm actually not too bothered with how that went. Someone's still shooting us. That's that enemy right there. And maybe some enemies behind this wall as well. We'll come back to that in just a moment, because I think if we walk forward here, that will open, but I'm curious if we can get some blue mana actually. Just before we do that, because it makes life a little bit easier to have Volt Ride available, because enemies that die quickly are Volt Ride's best friend, as you can see right there. And one more melee enemy to kill. Oh, 2 actually. Very well prepared for this. But we managed to get through and everything's okay. With that, I believe we can now get the 200 health pickup, but honestly, this is going a lot better than I was anticipating, so I'm honestly tempted to wait just a little bit longer until we've at least cleared out this place a little bit more. Because, yeah, it's very easy to take damage to these enemies, and might as well use that health to our advantage because of it, but I don't really want to walk back to it later, so let's just go underneath this little staircase. It lowers down like a lift, and you can grab the 200 health, some ammo, and a small glimpse of a room that's coming up with oh so many statues, which is another reason why I didn't want to bother destroying everything, because you are in there for a while. There is so many statues in this level. How many is it? 68. Yeah, I don't want to. It's too much work. No worries, though. We're just gonna move on. I don't know where that enemy even still came from, but that's okay. We got a lot of health. We got decent ammo. And we have a dream, so we should be good to go here. This upper arrow, we can just rocket jump to that key as well, but you end up missing out on some enemies later on, so it's probably better not to do that just yet. Shoot a rocket. I should probably use the Celestial Claw more than I am, but you never really know what to use it on that well, unfortunately. The parasites are also easily dispatched up with the Azure Orb as well, which is really nice. It's just... it takes a couple shots, and doing it with the swords only requires one attack, and that's generally preferable, if you ask me. Now, there is one more secret area here. There is some purple mana here as well. We'll deal with what that is later. And with that, we just get some extra rockets. It's a very easily missable secret area, and probably the one that took me the longest to try and find while preparing this, so that's nice. Because you just jump off a ledge. It's very... There's a couple of those ledge secrets which are very easily missable. But I feel that one's just so out of sight from everything else that it's even more missable, because it's just right down there. And anyway, press this switch. It's going to spawn a whole bunch of meatballs, which is just great. We're just going to jump to this key. Because if you fall down, you have to go all the way back up again. So if we just get that out of the way first, we can then deal with the enemies that have spawned that are trying to kill us. Some may come our way as well. And we can just safely jump all over the place here as well. If we fall down now, it doesn't really matter as much, because we already have the key, so we don't have to walk all the way back around anymore. Arguably, it's probably better to kill these a little bit lower to the floor, because it makes the souls a little bit easier to pick up. Though they do fall down when they die, so it probably doesn't matter too much. Who's still alive? I can hear someone shooting at me. I suppose if I just go back up, it's probably going to be okay. No concerns. There we go. Also, as long as they are just in melee range, then the sucking isn't going to happen with the axe, and then you won't have the risk that you're just going to take damage instead. So there is some strategy to be had there. The remaining enemies are coming our way. We do want to go back down here, because this door opened when we pressed that switch, then grab the silver key. And having the Celestial Claw is nice for this next section, because this next section is going to have a missable secret if you do it wrong, and it kind of sucks to miss it, so we're just gonna do our best here. We're gonna press this switch, and then we're gonna try to get behind this silver door that is going to be moving backwards. Just get out of the way, give me the ribbons, and we get the Aetherium, which is a pretty good weapon. It is a room killer, really. It's the BFG of the game, and quite frankly, it is very, very nice to have. We're not going to be using it too much in this level. I did not mean to use soul power there, but you know what? We'll just have to make do. We're just going to run forward and see what we can get out of it. It's not like I'm particularly planning these soul power things anyway, but it is kind of nice to not just use it by accident, so but I'd say that worked out. We got a decent amount of kills out of it ultimately, so I don't mind it too much. I don't think we had the ammo to use the Aetherium soul power effect just yet, and I don't think we're going to have that in this video either, but it's pretty good, so whenever that happens, that's going to be fairly exciting. It's also a good way to die, but like I said, we'll see that later. For now, though, we're just going to move on. I should probably head back just a little bit to make sure I didn't miss anything, because I did just kind of run forward, hoping for the best. There is a message there, which I don't know if I read, which is this one right here. Speaking of not faltering, which, as you can maybe see, did not work out very well for them, so that's unfortunate. But we're just gonna go back up. I don't think I missed anything else beyond that message, assuming I did miss it, because usually I do just run towards it, but it It's very easy to miss a message and then not knowing which one you missed, and then you have to go through all of them again. It's just a hassle, so rather not worry too much about it. Instead, let's get our Celestial Claw out, destroy this eyeball fiesta, and press this switch to open some doors down there. But before we go down to those doors, we're going to do a small jumping puzzle right here to get one of the rarest things in the world, which is an invisibility power-up that actually kind of works. So that's exciting. I'm actually just going to grab this as well. So enemies don't see you until you start attacking them, and that is just grand. So with that, we are going to just run our way through. We're going to use our axe to its maximum capability, which is a rarity for sure. But as you can see, it is fairly effective. And standing next to enemies when they die means you grab the soul immediately, so that is wonderful as well. There is one enemy that I just ran past. I hope that's not going to be a problem, because I assume he's just going to try and get us later from behind. That's never really good. Let's just throw a rocket at him. I didn't say overkill, but I'm pretty sure he did die, so it's no worries there. Some enemies down there, we'll deal with those later. For now, we're just going to keep moving on. The further you go into this maze, the more enemies you're going to spawn, so we're just going to take this a little bit carefully. I do like using the Azure Orb on these things because they do end up dying relatively quickly, but at the same time destroying everything with the Azure Orb, it can be a little bit of a hassle because it does take a little bit longer than I would like at the same time, so it's both a time saver and a time loser at the same time somehow, and I don't understand how that's even possible. Sometimes enemies fall down here, but they are easily dispatched of with a weapon, so that's good. Some enemies are still down there trying to shoot me, but that's okay. And we are just going to kill this final tree with some rockets. And upon grabbing this golden key, the platform is going to go back down, but we don't want to go back down just yet. There is one more purple mana power-up, which I didn't pick up yet, which is also a pretty good indicator of a secret area that is directly underneath it, because right here is another 200 health, and it makes life a little easier, plus it's a secret. Also, we can very easily from this ledge just shoot down a couple times with some missiles and just destroy everything that was still waiting for us on the floor. So all in all, it's a pretty good deal. There is still plenty of ammo to be grabbed over here if you so desire, though we don't really need it that much, because the remaining level we can more or less deal with fairly easily anyway. So let's move on, press the switch. There's going to be 2 enemies on the wall here. Get this also fairly easily missable message, because once you jump down here, there's no real way of getting back up unless you walk all the way back again. There we go. That's another message on the wall here as well. And one more lowering down with our Celestial Claw in hand. And before you know it, we're back at the start of the level. There was a golden key switch earlier that we walked past. It was at the very start right here. It takes you to the end of the level. We're just going to put the ribbons in our hands and we are just going to shoot all the ammo that we have. It completely nullifies the fight. It is such a powerful weapon. And it's just neat. It's just really neat. I really like it. It just works very well, and I appreciate it for what it is. And I would like to have more of it, but fortunately we do get to play the game every now and then when we don't have that weapon and the ammo for it. But at the same time, it would be kind of nice to just destroy everything, you know? It's ups and downs for sure. I think that should be about it. We're missing one enemy, that's correct. We're missing one message, which is right here. When we press that switch, it is going to lower a bridge, and at the end of that bridge is going to be one more of these enemies. And before you know it, everything's gone. And we can leave. And again, some more statues. This entire wall is the one we saw earlier that's just lined with these statues as well, up and down. There's really no great way to shoot them. And we're moving on. We're moving on from this place. Great level. Really like it a lot. Very vertical, which is rare to see. And with that, we're going on to Episode 2, Mission 3. Which is Halls of Doom. And has a slightly similar track to one in Doom as well, if you listen very closely. There's a message up there. We'll get to that in just a second. And with the sword in hand, we can move with relative ease. How many destructibles does this one have? Only 16. Maybe I should have looked into that. There is actually probably fairly doable to destroy everything here, because I was just thinking, I don't really remember that many statues being here, and most of them are at the end. So it probably shouldn't be too hard to find, but unfortunately didn't prepare it, so we're just going to move on instead. Over there is a crusher. You can see how it works with these enemies. They are also allergic to it, but they are also allergic to swords. I did forget about that switch right there, though, which is occasionally... No, I did hit it. I thought I didn't. Occasionally it's a little hard to hit, like occasionally it just doesn't work. But when it does, you can use this tiny, very missable elevator to take you to the message that I showed off just a little bit earlier. It's all the way over here. If we check our messages stat, it does not count for one, but it is here as an indicator of the secret area, which I appreciate. There's also this pickup, which gives you full ammo for the Celestial Claw. So once we get that, we're going to have 50 rockets, and that is just a pretty good deal. With that though, we're going to move on around the crusher. Watch out for that. There is a couple of enemies here that hopefully are not going to get in the way too much of me getting the Azure Orb, the health, the legendary soul, and we're just going to get the Celestial Claw, and then we're going to see how well this weapon works against a handful of enemies. It turns out fairly effective for the most part. It does make the screen shake a lot though. It's fairly difficult to see what's going on at times, but as you can see, it makes this fight a bit of a cakewalk, and hopefully we can maybe get a couple shots in like this as well. We got a couple in there, so that's nice. Couple more enemies aggroed as well. We are out of green mana, but that's not really a problem against these enemies, as we have seen earlier. And before you know it, everything's gone. We are reasonable on health. I mean, we had 200 and we lost a decent chunk of it, but ultimately, I'm not too concerned. Let's just grab everything and move on in a second here. Yeah, that's just about it. There's probably some more ammo in here, but don't worry about it. There is, like, it would seem that you would be able to take a bunch of shortcuts in this level as well. Like, we could just rocket jump up here to get that ammo right there. We could rocket jump up there to get a little bit further in the level, but you're actually a little blocked off if you try to do that right now. There's like one wall stopping you from getting a golden key a little early. So unfortunately there isn't much to show off there unless you like walls, but you know, some people do. There is the Volt Ride over here as well. We can use that to destroy that little guy right there, and apparently some enemies underneath it. Didn't know that actually worked. Having just picked it up, I figured I might as well try, but I didn't think you'd kill more than 2 enemies, but apparently it does actually hit a 3rd one. That's very nice. Some more green ammo and health as well. The tiny pickups you can always pick up, even if you are above 100 health, which is nice. The bigger ones, it doesn't work for that. And over here is our first non-secret instance of whatever the ribbon weapon is called, and it is, it's quite the example. There is some small purple mana waiting for you, and if we grab this, it's going to show off a whole bunch of enemies. We can just simply shoot once, and as you can see, it gets rid of most of them. Unfortunately, I didn't try to dodge anything there, so we ended up taking a decent chunk of damage, but we did get a lot of soul from that. But yeah, like I said earlier, it does seem like you can take some shortcuts here because you can very easily just jump to some of these other platforms that you're kind of meant to go to later, but there just isn't that much to do here beyond picking up ammo, unfortunately. So instead, we are just going to move on to the sound of thumping in the distance. These walls, these crushers, they do work. The game even auto-saves, apparently. These crushers will just insta-kill you. The spikes don't matter too much, but the crushers are bad, so just keep that in mind. You can get through that without taking damage, but quite frankly, I never learned how because it's almost irrelevant, honestly, most of the time. But it does occasionally line up that you can just run forward without the spikes being in the way. So that's an option for sure, but what is health? Who really needs it, ultimately? I do probably need to kill these enemies like that more often, where they don't actually just cause problems, because it does make life a little bit easier. There is a 200 health pickup right here. We'll get to that a little bit later. There's 2 messages here on the wall, which I read in the wrong order. And down there is the Celestial Claw and some more enemies. I'm trying not to get soul power just yet until we're through this room, really, because it's kind of nice to have it beyond this place. But let's see if we can accidentally not pick up stuff. This is the wall I was talking about. You can get to the other side of that wall through taking shortcuts, but unfortunately not on this side, to my knowledge. So that's a bit of a shame, but fortunately we managed to find our way through anyway. We now have soul power, so let's just grab these remaining things and go up the elevator here in a second. Let's just... where is the elevator? Oh god, that's not good. It's right here. Yeah, that's not great, but that's okay. Let's try this. And shoot a black hole. Which is the Ethereum's weapon of choice when you use soul power on it. Pretty good. It does remove the souls, unfortunately, which isn't great, but fairly effective against the standard enemy for sure. It just kills them. It guarantees kills them, and that's wonderful. Didn't expect to actually be able to show that off. It does require a decent chunk of ammo at the end of the day, and it probably isn't super worth it, especially not on this chapter where all the enemies die against a regular attack anyway, but it's kind of cool, isn't it? It's kind of cool to shoot a black hole at someone. Also, this opens for a secret area that you can, once again, get to in a slightly different way as well, which is more or less shown off, but let's just make sure that we get it out of the way, because you can get here a little bit earlier, either through this or just going all the way around these walls. You can jump on this little platform and you can reach this ammo pickup at the end. And you can actually open up the secret area from the other side as well if you so desire. Ultimately not necessary, but you do get a decent amount of ammo for it at the end of the day, so that's kind of nice for sure. I'm a little bit low on health because of that, because you can do rocket jumps without taking damage, but I'm not super good at it. It's just a very specific thing of angles and the right distance and all that stuff, and I just haven't really practiced it that much. One more message over here. All good, all great. Let's just grab this. Let's just press this switch, and that should spawn some more meatballs. It also raises some stairs in this middle beginning area. And as long as I can not die against these enemies, we should be good to go. Because I did mention earlier that there was a 200 health pickup waiting for us that we were going to get a little bit later. Once we have raised that platform, you can swim into the water behind it and go all the way back to the 200 health pickup. So that is wonderful. I think this should take me back to where I came from, and indeed it does. You can just swim back if you so desire, but this works as well. We have some secrets, some messages. We're still missing a whole bunch, but fortunately one message is right here. And then we're just going to use the ribbons one more time. I don't love using it there, but I think there is one more mana pickup down here as well, yeah. That small purple mana is going to be a bit of a lifesaver later on as well. It just makes one of the fights here a lot easier, because there is going to be an otherwise fairly awkward fight that I don't want to deal with, but there is, fortunately, a small purple mana at the start of that room. So all the messages we're missing are more or less here. This one says perfection, and then you press the switch and you move a little forward. It also closes the bars behind you, so be careful of that. There's another message right here. It's more or less the same messages as all the other ones about power, alignment, perfection, and order. That is what they're about, and that's what they write about on the walls. All of the text on these messages is more or less either similar or the same as well. Some messages have a little bit less characters and stuff like that, but you get the idea. There's nothing really to translate in the secret messages either, so we're just going to destroy all these enemies. We accidentally jumped down a little bit. You preferably just get all of those meatballs in one attack. Unfortunately, I didn't. That was a jump. But you can get a decent amount of them even with a bad shot, and that is ultimately worth it. It just makes that fight so much easier. Press the switch. It is going to spawn a whole bunch of trees, but fortunately I didn't really use my rocket launcher that much, so we can just shoot a whole bunch of rockets. It also makes that button appear. And with that, we can just start shooting. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of statues here, and that is most of the destructibles as well. So again, probably should have looked into it at least a little bit. Most of the other statues are outside. I'm guessing that's just all of them, but no worries. We're still missing a couple of secrets, so let's just get those right now. Once you have raised these bridges by shooting that switch, this switch over here appears as well. It is going to lower a platform. You can ride it all the way to the top for one more secret area. And after grabbing all of these souls, we can jump over into this wall, which is difficult to see that it's a secret area, but if you jump towards it, it will bring you to another message, which doesn't actually make your message stat go up either. So that's 9 messages, but only 7 of them count, but that is everything. And with that, we can move on to the final level of this chapter. Very good. 11:11. I couldn't have thought of a better time myself. But let's go to the final level of episode 2. Sentinel Sanctuary. I'm actually just going to go for all destructibles here because this one only has 9 and there's only 2 rooms. So there isn't really that much that you can do wrong. Over here, I'm going to jump to that middle section right there. It's not too tricky of a jump, but it does bring you to the Star of Torment, which is wonderful. Just ignore all that noise in the bottom there. It's probably not important. And over here is a secret area. We picked up a whole bunch of weapons at the start of this fight, so we're just going to be able to use that. We're not going to deal a whole bunch of damage here to the actual boss itself, but we can destroy all of these little blobs that he shoots out. Those are all going to give us a little bit of soul power, and that is ultimately the goal of this fight, to just try and get soul power fully charged up. So that's exactly what we're going to do. It's mostly just going to be a bunch of circle strafing and destroying little red blobs that are getting shot at us by the boss here. It looks suspiciously like a Metroid, but it is like the Queen Parasite that made all the other ones that destroyed the races. So ultimately, it's counted as an evil boss, I suppose. But, you know, it is what it is. But let's just keep walking in circles. There is a whole bunch of green ammo waiting for us on the other side of this arena as well. I'm getting a little low on health, so we're just going to go hide under the stairs for a second for a secret area as well. There's 3 secret areas. You might be able to guess where the third one is based on if you've paid close attention to what this arena looks like. We are getting somewhat close on soul power. There should be some souls laying around that I haven't picked up yet. You can probably lure them all pretty close to each other if you actively try. But slowly but surely we're getting there. I'm not really too concerned. This is going alright, and indeed, there we go. And with the Celestial Claw, we can just sort of keep him in the air there. Very easily dispatched once you have that soul power. He destroys in a gorgeous color display, and the middle of the arena turns into a secret area, so that's nice. Or an exit, rather, not a secret area. There's some statues still remaining here on this side of the arena. From here, we can also get the second secret, or third secret area even, which is full green mana, which is obviously very good. And then there is some more statues on the other side as well. There's also Celestial Claw, and I haven't really found a use case for it in this boss fight, so we're just gonna ignore it. You can also use these little elevators to go up here. There is some ammo waiting for you up here, and you're reasonably safe from the boss. Occasionally the boss does make it up here, but there is some pickups to be picked up here if you cannot find the secret areas as well. So all in all, there's just a lot going on to keep you alive during this fight. As long as you can just reach soul power, then you're pretty much good to go. But that should be that. That's all kill secrets and technically all the messages as well. And that concludes episode 2. Definitely an interesting one. What didn't we do? Did we not do something? Probably. No, we did do everything. For some reason I thought we were going to get hardcore from doing that, but we're not. We need one more. But since we've done that,
welcome back, champion.
Unfortunately it got rid of my favorite color scheme, but it did add the ability to open this door. And this door opens up the doorway to really all the other chapters in the game as well. We'll be exploring this a little bit more in a second, but first I'm going to just beeline to the secret level, which we're also just going to get out of the way in this video as well. It is hidden behind the Arcane Expanse portal. You can swim down here And over here, the words secret level are written on the wall, or portal to a bunch of question marks. And that's exactly where we're going to go. Now the secret level is real weird. It's certainly one of the more messier levels for sure. There is a lot to look at if you so desire. There seems to be very little to find. You can jump up here if you want to. You can look at all the architecture that's been placed here. There's nothing really hiding behind these pillars to my knowledge. I have genuinely scoured this level in the sake of trying to really find anything. And it's a gorgeous level, but it's real weird. With down here are some spiky balls. It looks kind of interesting. You can also go over here because the water kind of stops over here, but there's still water. But if you swim down from here, you can have the blue filter not apply that you usually get underwater. The downside is that the red over there is just, it's very red. and the blue filter does make it a little bit more bearable. But it's probably the only way to see these spiky balls go up and down without the water filter, so that's kind of nice at least. If you touch these, you're going to take a whole bunch of damage, so be careful of that. You can just sort of insta-dize these as well if you did touch them bad enough, so be wary of that. But with that, we're going to move on to this next section. There's some lava on the floor here, some more architecture as well. I'm going to make one quick save here, because quick saves have a tendency to just break stuff in this game, and I think this is a pretty good example. If you walk forward here, then the fires start shooting. But if you load, then the fires are still shooting, and if you go over it again, then the fires stop shooting, and you can just walk to the other side, if you so desire. Makes that a little bit easier, but ultimately it's a little bit of a cheesy way. And I don't want that particular flavor of cheese. We're going with the other flavor of cheese, which is that we're going to jump to this side, and we're just going to skip that whole section altogether. It does bring you to this lower section instead of the top section, which allows you to get into this bucket, and that's ultimately where we have to go. But there is more. There is one very hidden message all the way over here, and it just says, "Oi mate, get out me house." Very good. And then the letters say oi, and then a whole bunch of demonetization symbols. It's very unusual. It's one of those words that if you say it in a Dutch accent, you end up saying the T a little bit too pronounced, and it just makes it sound very aggressive. So we're just not going to touch that, and instead we are just going to move on, jump up here and right into the bucket to progress into the secret level. Here we have a whole bunch of crushers that are moving at different timings, and if you fall down here, you're just going to get teleported back up. So there's no real worry of falling, there's really just a worry of getting crushed, so we're just going to ignore all of it. And instead, we're just going to take this side path and do a slightly tricky jump to just get past all of that. Over here, similar to the other moving platforms that were moving horizontally in the first level of episode 2, if you touch these, you take damage. But these also have an extra addition that you just fly when you touch them. So if you were to do something like this, you just fling right into that portal. You take a little bit of damage, but it does generally work quite well to get through this. Over here, we have a little bit of a view of this place, sort of a Half-Life area right here. It always just reminds me of Half-Life. I don't know if it's meant to be, but that's the only mountain that I have in my visual memory that you walk on the side of, I suppose. Here is the one destructible in the level, so if you get that, you do get the destroy all the props thing. In here is some water. There is a secret portal over here as well. This just says way back, and the text just looks like a little guy, so that's good. But going through this portal puts you all the way back behind the bucket, and I don't want to be behind the bucket because it means we have to do the jumping puzzle again. So we're just going to jump off the cliff, get teleported back to the start of this mountainous section instead. And I don't think there's a purpose of going back either. I've tried many a thing, but I couldn't really find a reason to actually want to go back there, so we won't. Instead, we're going to go up here and find the fish of legend. It is gorgeous. It's in 3D. It's in light. It's just wonderful. And when you pick it up, you grab the stupid fish and you find the Wee John clan, which is... Well, where do we start with this? Let's first just destroy them all, because they're just dabbing at us the entire time. So, in 2011, right, there was a game called Rise of the Triad. It was a reboot of the original Rise of the Triad. It had a boss called Big John, and it had, as voice lines, a lot of impressions of Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie Predator. Playing the character Dutch. And, yeah, he had all those voice lines, right? So in Dusk, later on, published by New Blood as well, there was another boss called Big John, who didn't look the same as he did in Rise of the Triad. He looked more or less like this. I don't know if it's exactly like this. I don't know if the armor is exactly the same. But he did get the Dave Oshry face sprite that he had in an E3 promoting Dusk at one point, with the big sunglasses and the happy face. And then over here you have the Wee John clan, which is just a whole bunch of them. And it sure is something. Anyway, from here, you can jump into flame if you so desire. We also, on evil difficulty, end up perfectly with just the right amount of soul power as well to leave the level. Once you pick up the fish as well, it closes this area behind you, so I don't think you can go all the way back anymore. You can jump down here, the exit is right there, and if you jump down into this white void, it just takes you back up here. And yeah, to my knowledge, there's no way of getting back. You can technically get to this section right here as well, where the Wee John clan was coming from. I'm not sure if it's intended. It doesn't really matter. There's not that much going on here, but there's some stuff to look at. The main reason why I took that damage was for the award at the end. Hopefully it triggers. But if we just activate soul power and leave the level right here, we should get just about every award in the game except for being fast. That's the one more that you can get, I think. Is that if we beat the par time, we'd have 10 awards right here, but right now we do have Collector, which doesn't actually have an achievement tied to it anymore, but you get this if you pick up every item, and that also includes health items, and that is... oh, that's the worst. I mean, if you're playing with cheats, it's not too bad, because there is a cheat called Ouch, and if you use that, you take 1 damage, and it makes picking up all the health pickups a lot more doable, but my god, it's too much. Because you have to pick up all the mana as well, and it's just a mess. There's all the secrets, all the kills, finishing a level with less than 10% health, not having any mana at the end, having soul mode at the end, reading all the messages because none of them counted, but you'll always just get this at the end, destroying all the props and getting 5 or more awards. And then there's technically one more for finishing the level with max mana, I do believe, and we're not going to get that because there's no mana in this level, but that is the secret level. Certainly a strange one.
Welcome back, champion.
And it does take you back all the way to the start of the game, so we're going to have to go through the difficulty portal once again, but fortunately we should know where that is. Because we have gone through it previously. We can also now just explore the new gateway area right here. There is plenty of text to read. This pillar will help, I'm sure, which says read the codex in the menu if you so desire to read about the story. I just realized I don't have my notes open. So this one's going to be a bit tricky, because this one says the evil force came thousands of years ago like a cancer. It spread silent, unseen. But then the text over here, I think, if I can just remember this without my notes, I think it says bodacious cowboys such as your friend will never be welcome here high in the Custer Dome. I think that's the lyric, which is from Steely Dan's Gaucho. Oh my god, I need to get my notes up, but let's see if I got that right. Bodacious cowboy such as your friend will never be welcome here high in the Custer Dome. And indeed Gaucho by Steely Dan. Well, I actually remembered it. Very good. But yeah, very easily missable piece of translatable text right there, so that's good. Over here we have one that says Our once sacred lands are now beacons of hate and darkness. And I think down here somewhere there's another message somewhere, and I don't fully recall where it is, but we're probably gonna run into it as I waffle along through this final passageway. And indeed, over here, the sacred waters of the gateway heals all wounds. But then the text actually says, even the most pious can be swayed by evil. Which is different, but not... Yeah, it's just different. It might have just been an earlier version of the text, I suppose. That more or less concludes things. Over there is the sacred path. There is one more secret message that I'm aware of, which is hidden away right here. Which is this one, which just says, I wanted to put a secret here, but it felt too obvious. And then the actual message, just again some random letters, but fortunately it's random letters in different languages, and I'm pretty sure you can just show those off on YouTube, so that's all good stuff indeed. Either way, that concludes episode 2 and the secret level. Next time we play, we're going to do episode 3, the sacred path, and I hope to see y'all there. Bye bye.